Emma never liked staying late at the office. The building was too quiet after dark, and the hum of the city outside always felt distant, almost lonely. But that night, she had no choice. The quarterly report was due, and she wanted it perfect. Her small desk lamp cast a warm glow across stacks of papers, and the sound of rain tapping against the tall glass windows filled the silence. She told herself she'd leave as soon as she finished, but time slipped away. She was typing the final numbers when the elevator chimed. The doors opened with a soft ding, and her heart jumped a little. It was too late for anyone else to still be around. She turned, half expecting the janitor. Instead, Ryan Hales stepped out. He looked surprised to see her there, but his smile was gentle, familiar. He held 2 coffee cups in his hands. "Emma," he said, walking toward her. "You're still here." She tried to sound casual, though her heart picked up. "Just wrapping up the report." He placed one of the cups on her desk. "Then you deserve this. You look like you need it." She smiled, a little flustered. "Thanks, you didn't have to." "I know," he said quietly, "but I wanted to." Their fingers brushed as she took the cup, and for a second, neither moved. It was nothing, and yet everything. That small touch sent a warmth through her that lingered far too long. She looked away quickly, trying to focus on the papers, but she could feel his eyes on her. Ryan had always been kind, thoughtful, the type of boss who noticed when someone was struggling. But lately, something between them had shifted. It wasn't just professional respect anymore. There were glances that lasted too long, smiles that carried unspoken meaning. And even though she tried to ignore it, part of her didn't want to. He walked to the window, looking out at the rain. "You ever notice how quiet it gets up here after everyone leaves?" he asked. Emma nodded. "It's peaceful, actually." He turned back to her, his voice softer now. "Peaceful, yeah? But lonely too." The words made her pause. There was something in his tone, something honest, maybe even vulnerable. She didn't know how to respond, so she gave a small smile. "Maybe that's why I work better at night. No distractions." Ryan chuckled quietly, shaking his head. "You always hide behind work." That made her blink. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," he said, stepping closer, "you bury yourself in tasks so you don't have to feel anything real." Her breath caught. "That's not true, isn't it?" His eyes searched hers, calm but intense. "I've watched you do it for years, Emma. You care too much, but you never let anyone see it." She looked down, pretending to rearrange her papers, trying to find a safe answer. But her voice came out softer than she intended. "And what about you? You hide too." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, maybe I do." The air between them changed again. It wasn't uncomfortable, just charged, like the air before a storm. She could hear her heartbeat, steady but too fast. Ryan took another small step closer. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She nodded slowly. "You ever feel like you're standing right in front of something, Reland? You're too afraid to reach for it?" Her lips parted. The question hit deeper than she expected. "What do you mean?" she asked, though she already knew. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think you know what I mean." The sound of rain filled the silence. She could feel the tension in the room, the weight of everything unsaid. Years of quiet friendship, late-night calls, shared jokes, small glances that never turned into words, all of it led to this moment. "Ryan," she whispered, unsure what to say. He looked right into her eyes. "It's all right, Emma. Just go with it." The words were calm, gentle, and yet they shook her. She didn't know what he wanted her to go with a moment, the feeling or the truth. They'd both been avoiding, but something in his voice made her heart ache. She turned away for a second, trying to steady herself. "You shouldn't say things like that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why not?" he asked. "Because it changes things." "Maybe they need to change," he replied softly. That silence after his words felt heavier than anything else. Emma didn't know how to respond. She wasn't even sure if she wanted to. For the first time in a long time, she didn't want to run from how she felt. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Inside, the only sound was the quiet ticking of the office clock. Time seemed to slow. She could feel his presence behind her. Not too close, but close enough to feel the warmth of him. He said quietly, almost like a confession, "I've tried to ignore it, to keep things simple, but I can't pretend anymore." She turned to face him. "Ryan, I know," he said, cutting her off gently. "I'm your boss. It's complicated. But sometimes," he hesitated, "sometimes the right thing doesn't make sense." Emma's heart was racing. She knew this was dangerous, not in a bad way, but in a way that could change everything. Her head told her to stop, to walk away, but her heart was already answering him. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't have to say anything," he said softly. "Just be honest with yourself." The words hit deep. She realized she'd been avoiding the truth for a long time, not just about him, but about her own fears. Maybe she really had been hiding behind work. Maybe she was afraid of being seen. Ryan gave a small smile, the kind that made his eyes soften. "It's all right, Emma. Just go with it," he repeated, quieter this time. It's almost like he was telling her it was okay to feel something. And for a moment, she did. She let herself feel the warmth of his gaze, the pull between them, the quiet understanding that needed no explanation. She didn't move closer, didn't say a word, but something in her shifted. Something she couldn't take back. The clock struck 9. The rain eased. Ryan looked at her one last time before turning toward the door. "Good night, Emma," he said gently. "Good night," she whispered back, her voice barely steady. When the door closed behind him, she sat in silence, her heart still racing. The office felt different now, like it had seen something private, something fragile. She looked down at the untouched coffee he'd brought and smiled sadly. That simple moment, the rain, the words. The quiet understanding was the start of something she didn't yet have a name for. But deep down, she knew one thing for sure. Life was about to change. And it all began when he said, "It's all right, just go with it." The days after that night in the office felt strange to Emma. The words Ryan had said kept echoing in her mind. "It's all right, just go with it." At first, she tried to convince herself it was just a passing moment, a rare emotional lapse after a long day. But every time she saw him, the air between them seemed heavier, charged with something unspoken. Their usual banter at work carried an extra layer of tension, their jokes lingering longer than before, their eyes meeting and holding a little too long. Emma kept her distance when she could. She focused on spreadsheets, meetings, and phone calls, telling herself that was all she needed to do. But Ryan had a way of finding her, always appearing at her desk with a small smile or a casual question that seemed innocent, but always carried a subtle intimacy she couldn't ignore. He was attentive, noticing little things, the way she stirred her coffee, how she frowned when concentrating, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous. Emma tried to act normal, but inside, her heart raced every time he was near. A week later, Ryan asked her to join him on a work trip to Seattle. It was just a 2-day visit for a client meeting. But the thought of spending that much time with him outside the office made Emma anxious. On the plane, she sat next to him, pretending to read a report while secretly stealing glances at him. He noticed, of course, and smirked lightly, but said nothing. That evening, after the client dinner, they found themselves in the hotel lounge, sitting near the fireplace. Outside, rain poured steadily, drumming against the windows. The lobby was almost empty, save for a few travelers scattered around. The fire crackled softly, warming the room and adding a golden glow to their faces. Emma sipped her tea, but her hands trembled slightly. Ryan studied her quietly, his expression calm, yet full of curiosity and something she couldn't name. "You've been avoiding me," said softly, breaking the silence. Emma swallowed. "I've been trying to think," she admitted. "About what?" She hesitated. "About us." Her voice was barely audibly in. Looked into the fire for a moment, then back at her. "I meant what I said that night," he admitted quietly. "I wasn't joking, and I wasn't thinking in the moment. I've felt this for a long time." Emma's chest tightened. "Then why did you wait so long to say it?" "Because I didn't want to risk losing what we already had," he said. His eyes softened. Our friendship matters to me more than anything. But pretending I don't feel this way has become impossible. She studied his face, seeing the sincerity in his expression. For years, she had trusted him, confided in him, laughed and cried with him. And now, seeing this vulnerable side, she realized how much she had longed for him to feel the same way. I don't know what to do, she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. I've been scared too. Scared of ruining this? But it carried all the weight of the past weeks, of unspoken feelings and stolen moments. Sometimes, Ryan said gently, the right thing is also the hardest thing. You feel it too, don't you? Emma looked down at her hands, then back at him. She nodded, unable to speak, but letting her eyes show everything she had been holding in. Ryan reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, and she felt a shiver run through her. Not fear, but longing. They sat in silence for a few minutes, the sound of the rain and the crackling fire filling the space. It was peaceful, but loaded with tension. Emma realized how much she wanted this moment to stretch, to last forever. The thought of returning to their usual office routine, pretending nothing had changed, felt unbearable. Ryan broke the silence again. Emma, you don't have to say anything. Just feel it. That's enough. She smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and apprehension. The walls she had built around her heart were crumbling, slowly, gently. In the presence of someone who had always cared, always understood. The next day at the client meeting, things were awkward at first. They maintained professionalism, but there were little small smiles. Lingering glances, moments when their hands almost brushed. Emma felt the pull between them stronger than ever. Ryan was patient, respectful, but attentive. She realized that this wasn't just a fleeting crush. This was something real, something she had tried to ignore for too long. That night, walking through the rainy streets of Seattle, they shared an umbrella. Their shoulders touched and neither moved away. The silence was comfortable, intimate, and Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. She realized she had been holding back not because of doubt, but because she was afraid of losing control of her heart. With Ryan, control felt unnecessary. She could just ill. When they returned to the hotel, they sat on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker through the rain. Ryan turned to her, voice soft but earnest. I don't know what the future holds, he said. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I do know I want to try, if you do. Emma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She didn't need to speak. Her nod said everything. In that moment, they were no longer just friends. The line between friendship and something more had been crossed. They didn't define it with words yet, but it was real. The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the balcony. Yet inside, they felt protected, cocooned in a bubble where only their emotions mattered. Emma leaned slightly closer, feeling Ryan's presence solid and reassuring. She realized that all the hesitation, all the fear, had led them here. And though the path ahead was uncertain, both of them knew that things had changed forever. This wasn't just a fleeting connection, it was the start of something they both wanted to explore. Something neither of them could deny anymore. As they went inside, the fire now replaced by the soft glow of the hotel room lamp, Emma felt a mix of excitement and fear. She knew that when they returned to Chicago, things would be different. Their friendship would evolve into something more, something delicate and complicated, yet beautiful. For the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to stop running from her feelings. She allowed herself to feel hope, longing, and a quiet joy she hadn't realized she'd been missing. And all of it started from that night. That brief but intense connection. That unspoken understanding between two people who had always been close. Ryan had opened the door, and Emma had stepped through it, not knowing what lay ahead, but ready to experience it. If you want, I can continue part 3 in the same fast-paced, emotionally rich style next, keeping it clean, romantic, and suitable for YouTube storytelling. Do you want me to do that? Weeks passed since the Seattle trip, but the quiet tension between Emma and Ryan never faded. It grew stronger with every glance, every small gesture, and every lingering conversation. At work, they returned to their routines, but the connection that had shifted on the balcony was impossible to ignore. Emma caught herself smiling at his jokes a little too long, noticing the way he listened to her with quiet intensity, or how he seemed to anticipate her thoughts before she spoke. Ryan was patient, careful. He didn't push, but the way he looked at her made Emma's heart race. It wasn't just attraction anymore, it was something deeper. Something that made her feel exposed, yet safe at the same time. And yet, even as their feelings grew, life outside the office demanded decisions. The news came on a bright Monday morning. Emma had been working late on a presentation when her phone buzzed. She opened the email from the Boston branch, a promotion offer. It was everything she had worked for, a managerial position in a new city. A fresh start, and a chance to prove herself in a bigger market. Her first thought was excitement. Then the weight of reality hit. Taking the position meant leaving Chicago. And leaving Ryan. Her hands trembled as she read the email again. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but it also came with a heavy cost. She thought about Ryan, the quiet smiles, the shared glances. The moments that had passed in the office when no one else was around. She remembered his words on the balcony in Seattle. "I want to try, if you do." The promise was unspoken but powerful. Later that day, she found Ryan in his office. He looked up from his papers, smiling politely. "How's the presentation going?" Emma took a deep breath. "I need to talk to you about something." She handed him the email, her fingers shaking slightly. Ryan read it quickly, then leaned back in his chair. "Boston, huh?" He forced a smile, but Emma noticed the subtle tightness around his eyes. "That's big news." "It is," she admitted. "It's everything I've worked for." He nodded slowly, his voice calm but soft. "Then you should take it. You've earned it, Emma. Don't let anything hold you back." Her heart twisted. She wanted to tell him that he was the reason she hesitated, that leaving him was the hardest part. But the words caught in her throat. Instead, she said, "Thank you for understanding." Ryan's eyes held hers for a long moment. "Sometimes the right thing hurts," he whispered. The words were quiet, almost lost, but Emma felt the weight behind them. She realized he wasn't just giving her permission to leave, he was expressing the truth of his own heart. The pain of letting her go. The next few days were a blur of packing, meetings, and farewells. Emma tried to focus on the excitement of the move, but each moment reminded her of what she would be leaving behind. She walked through the office, seeing familiar faces, hearing the casual laughter of coworkers. But her mind kept drifting to Ryan. Every smile, every glance, every touch that had lingered between them now felt like a memory she couldn't replay often enough. The night before her flight, Ryan stopped by her apartment. He held a small box of farewell gift, thoughtful but simple. "I wanted you to have something to remember Chicago," he said, handing it to her. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a framed photo of the two of them at a team-building event, smiling genuinely carefree. She felt tears prick at her eyes. "Ryan," she whispered. "I know this is hard," he said softly. I want you to go with no regrets. Boston is your chance, but I'll miss you more than I can say." Her chest tightened. She wanted to reach for him, to tell him everything, but she also knew some things were best felt rather than spoken. She took a deep breath. "I'll miss you too," she admitted. He hesitated, then stepped closer, his voice lowering. "Emma, you don't have to decide anything about us right now. Just know that I care. That's all that matters." Her heart ached with the truth of his words. They stood in silence, the unspoken emotions heavy in the room. She realized that sometimes love wasn't about grand gestures or confessions. Sometimes it was about patience, trust, and letting someone grow without holding them back. The morning of her flight came too quickly. Her suitcase was packed, her apartment almost empty. She walked through the quiet streets of Chicago one last time, savoring the familiar sights, the sounds, and the memories. Her phone buzzed a message from Ryan. "Safe travels. Remember, you're amazing." She smiled, replying quickly, "Thank you. I'll never forget you." At the airport, as she checked in, she felt a pang of longing. Ryan had been more than a coworker. He had become someone who understood her in ways no one else did. And though leaving was the right choice for her career, the thought of leaving him behind was bittersweet. When she boarded the plane, she glanced out the window at the city below. Chicago stretched beneath her, a tapestry of memories and quiet moments she would always carry. She thought about Ryan's words, "Sometimes the right thing hurts." She realized that was exactly what she was feeling, pain mixed with hope. Loss mixed with love. And in that moment, she understood that choices weren't just about success or opportunity. They were about courage, about stepping into the unknown while carrying the people who mattered in your heart. The plane lifted off, and she watched the city shrink beneath her. Her mind drifted back to Ryan, to the quiet intensity of his gaze, the gentle warmth of his presence. She felt a strange comfort knowing that no matter the distance, the connection they shared was real and enduring. Emma knew that life had a way of testing hearts, of forcing decisions that weren't easy, but she also knew that true feelings weren't erased by distance. What she felt for Ryan wasn't just a fleeting emotion, it was a bond. Fragile yet unbreakable, that would shape the path of her heart in ways she had yet to discover. And somewhere, she knew, Ryan was feeling the same ache, the same hope. Their story wasn't over. It had only just begun. The morning of Emma's departure arrived quietly, almost too quickly. Her apartment felt emptier than it had the night before. The little touches of her life packed neatly into suitcases and boxes. Every corner she passed seemed to whisper memories: her favorite mug in the kitchen, the framed photos on the wall, the stack of books she had meant to read. But what weighed heaviest on her heart wasn't leaving her things behind, it was leaving Ryan. She had spent the night tossing and turning, replaying their conversations, their quiet moments, and the words he had whispered that had stayed with her. "It's all right. Just go with it." That phrase had become a lifeline in her thoughts. It reminded her that sometimes love wasn't about holding on too tightly. It was about trusting the connection and letting it breathe, even if it meant distance. When she stepped out of her apartment, the streets of Chicago felt both familiar and strange. She noticed the way the sunlight glinted off the wet pavement, the sound of early morning traffic, the distant hum of life continuing as if nothing had changed. And yet for her, everything had changed. Each step toward the airport was heavy with anticipation and heartache. Ryan was waiting for her downstairs, leaning casually against the wall of the building, hands in his pockets. He looked up as she approached, giving her a small, tired smile that didn't quite reach the eyes that always held more than words could say. "Morning," he said softly, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of emotion. "Morning," she replied, forcing herself to smile. Her heart thudded. Strange mix of excitement for the journey ahead and sorrow for the goodbye she was about to face. They walked together toward the car in silence. The kind of silence that spoke louder than any conversation. Every step felt like it carried the weight of everything they hadn't said, the confessions left unspoken, the longing they had shared, and the delicate line between friendship and love that they had navigated for months at the airport. The moment of parting drew near. Emma clutched her suitcase handle tightly, trying to steady her nerves. Ryan didn't speak at first. He simply looked at her the way he always did, with that quiet intensity that made her feel both seen and cherished. "You're really doing this," he said finally, his voice low, almost hesitant. "I have to," she said softly. "It's a big opportunity. I can't turn it down." He nodded slowly. "I know." There was a pause, and then he stepped closer, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. The gesture was gentle, intimate, but not intrusive. It carried the weight of all the feelings they had shared without words. "I'm going to miss you," he said, his eyes searching hers for understanding. Tears pricked Emma's eyes. "I'll miss you too," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She wanted to say more, to tell him that leaving him was the hardest part of all. But she knew some things were best felt rather than spoken. He reached out, taking her hand in his. It was a simple touch, but it carried everything: love, longing, trust, and the quiet pain of parting. "Emma," he said softly, "I want you to be happy. I want you to chase your dreams. Just promise me you'll remember us." "I promise," she said, squeezing his hand gently. Her chest ached, but she felt a strange comfort knowing that they both understood the truth of the moment. This goodbye wasn't the end, was a pause. A chapter that would lead to something deeper. Even if the path was uncertain, the boarding announcement came, and the reality of departure pressed on them. Emma's heart raced as she let go of his hand, her fingers lingering just a moment longer than necessary. She took a step back, then another, until the distance between them grew. She glanced over her shoulder once, catching him watching her, its expression a mixture of pride, affection, and quiet sorrow. As she walked toward the gate, she felt a lump in her throat. She didn't look back again immediately, not wanting to break the fragile courage she had built. Her suitcase wheels clicked against the floor, each step a reminder of the life she was stepping into, and the love she was leaving behind for now, on the plane. As the engines roared to life, Emma pressed her forehead against the window, watching Chicago shrink beneath her. The city stretched out like a patchwork of memories, each building, street, and park carrying moments of laughter, work, and quiet companionship with Ryan. She felt a tear slip down her cheek, not from sadness alone, but from the intensity of feeling someone so deeply and not having them physically by your side. She thought about all the small, ordinary moments that had become extraordinary. Coffee together at work, late-night conversations, shared jokes that no one else understood, and the silent moments that had grown heavier with unspoken feelings. She realized that love wasn't always about grand gestures or dramatic confessions. Sometimes it was about patience, trust, and the courage to let someone grow without holding them back. Back in Chicago, Ryan stood on the sidewalk long after her cab pulled away. He watched the car disappear down the street, and a quiet ache settled in his chest. He knew Emma had to follow her path, that she deserved every opportunity in Boston and beyond. But he also knew that what they shared wasn't fleeting, it was real, and it would remain no matter the miles between them. For the next few days, they exchanged messages, short notes, simple phrases, expressions of care. "Safe travels, don't forget to eat, thinking of you." Each message carried a weight far beyond its words. It reminded them that connection wasn't about proximity. It was about presence in each other's hearts. Emma settled into her new life in Boston, the city vibrant and full of possibilities. She explored new streets, met new colleagues, and began building her career in ways she had always dreamed of. And yet, even amidst the excitement, she felt the quiet pull of Ryan's presence in her thoughts. She smiled at her phone when a message arrived from him, carrying the comfort of knowing that some bonds endure distance. Months later, they spoke on a video call for the first time. Seeing his face, hearing his voice, brought back the rush of emotions from that last morning in Chicago. They laughed, reminisced, and shared dreams. The connection remained intact, stronger than ever, proving that the love between them wasn't bound by location. It was something deeper, something enduring. Emma realized then that true love wasn't always about holding on tightly. Sometimes it was about letting go, trusting the heart, and believing that what is real will survive the challenges life presents. Ryan had given her the freedom to chase her dreams, and in doing so, he had shown her the depth of his love. And she knew without a doubt that their story was far from over. The goodbye had been painful, bittersweet, but it had also strengthened the bond they shared. It had given them both clarity, courage, and hope. As she looked out at the Boston skyline one evening, Emma felt a quiet peace. She could follow her path, chase her dreams, and still carry Ryan in her heart. And somewhere, miles away, Ryan was feeling the same hopeful, patient, and ready for the next chapter they would write together. The last goodbye had not been the end. It had been the beginning of a new, deeper connection, one built on trust, understanding, and the unspoken promise that no matter where life led, their hearts would find each other again. Marcus Hale returned home late on a cool autumn evening, exhausted from a long shift at his office in Seattle. The sky was fading into a deep shade of orange and purple, and the street remained quiet with only the rustling leaves moving across driveways. He rubbed his eyes, reached for his keys, and almost missed the small box sitting neatly on his front porch. The box was wrapped in matte brown paper with a soft, navy blue ribbon tied carefully around it. His name, Marcus, was written in curved handwriting on a tiny white tag. He straightened up and looked around, confused. No delivery truck had passed, and there were no footsteps or voices nearby. His neighborhood was peaceful, mostly families and professionals who stayed indoors after sunset. He leaned down, picked up the gift, and felt the weight of curiosity settle in his chest. Marcus wasn't used to surprises. He lived alone, kept to himself, and spent most nights writing short stories that never saw daylight. His life was steady, controlled, and quiet. Just as he turned the gift over in his hands, he heard someone step onto the sidewalk. "Good you, found it." A soft voice called. Marcus looked up and saw Ella Thompson, his next-door neighbor, standing near her picket fence with a steaming cup of tea. She wore a cream sweater and loose hair tied behind her ear. Her expression was calm, gentle, and a little nervous, as if she wasn't sure how he would react. "You left this?" Marcus asked, adjusting his glasses slightly. Ella nodded, offering a shy smile. "You've helped me carry groceries so many times. I thought I should say thank you properly." Marcus blinked, genuinely surprised. He hadn't realized she noticed those small moments, him grabbing milk cartons from her car, holding her door open, or helping her when her porch light flickered out. He did those things without expecting anything in return. "You didn't have to do this," he said, though a faint warmth stirred in his chest. "I know," she replied softly, "but I wanted to." Marcus held the box a little tighter. He wasn't used to receiving thoughtful things. He moved to Seattle after leaving New York and a life that fell up-tended relationships. A career that drained him. Dreams he stopped pursuing. Everything felt distant back there, yet close enough to haunt him when nights got too quiet. He loosened the ribbon, slowly unwrapped the paper, and carefully lifted the lid. Inside lay a leather-bound notebook, smooth and dark brown, with gold-pressed letters on the cover. "Write something worth remembering." For a moment, he didn't speak. He just stared, speechless, because the gift felt too personal, too aware of a part of him he no longer shared. He finally looked up at Ella. "How did you know I write?" Ella shifted her teacup between her hands. "Sometimes I hear your keyboard late at night from my window. The rhythm doesn't sound like office work. It sounds like someone trying to create something." Marcus let out a quiet laugh, not mocking, but surprised. He couldn't remember the last time someone noticed something about him that wasn't surface level. "I used to write a lot," he admitted. "Stories, essays, dreams that never became anything." Ella stepped a little closer, her eyes kind but not intrusive. "Maybe they still can." Her voice wasn't pushy. She wasn't trying to fix him or give advice. It felt more like a gentle reminder, one he didn't know he needed. Marcus traced the notebook's edges with his thumb. It felt like the start of something small, yet meaningful. He hadn't written properly in months, maybe years, but suddenly, holding that gift, he felt a spark he thought he lost. "You notice things?" he said softly. Ella smiled, though her gaze dropped slightly, showing a hint of vulnerability. "Only when they matter." For a moment, neither spoke. The cool air wrapped around them, carrying the scent of pine trees and distant rain. Streetlights flickered on one by one, adding a faint glow to the quiet evening. Marcus wanted to say something that matched the sincerity of the moment, but instead he settled on a simple truth. "Thank you. Really. You're welcome," she whispered. "And if you start writing again, I'd love to read something someday. Only if you want." He nodded, more serious now. Maybe sooner than I thought." Ella took a step backward toward her yard, smiling lightly before walking away. She didn't turn back, but Marcus watched her silhouette disappear into her doorway. The simple gesture, the thoughtfulness, the way she understood something unspoken knit, lingered with him long after she left. He walked inside, placed the notebook on his desk, and sat quietly in front of his computer. For a long moment, he simply stared at the blank screen. Then, slowly, almost without thinking, he opened a new document and began typing. Words flowed like they'd been waiting for permission. A small gift from a neighbor shouldn't have meant much. But to Marcus, it felt like someone had opened a window in a room he forgot he was living in. He paused, fingers hovering above the keyboard, smiling to himself. Maybe this wasn't just a gift. Maybe it was a beginning he didn't know he needed. And though Marcus didn't realize it yet, Ella hadn't given the gift just to thank him. She had her own reasons. Reasons she wasn't ready to share. This was only the first step in something neither of them fully understood. The days after receiving the notebook felt different for Marcus. He found himself stepping outside more often, sometimes just standing on his porch with a cup of coffee, hoping to see Ella walking home from her afternoon shift at the local bookstore. Their conversation started casually short greetings, small smiles, simple questions like, "How was your day?" Or, "Are you writing anything new?" But each exchange grew longer, deeper, and more personal, as if they were slowly learning to trust each other with pieces of their inner worlds. One evening, a light breeze moved through the neighborhood, carrying the scent of wet grass after a brief drizzle. Marcus was sitting on his porch steps, notebook open beside him, writing a story about second chances. He heard footsteps from next door and looked up to see Ella walking out with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She paused when she noticed him, then approached with a soft, thoughtful smile. "Writing again?" she asked. He nodded. "Trying." Still shaking the rust off, she sat down beside him, not too close, but near enough that he could feel her presence. "It suits you, Scoo," she said simply. There was something comforting in the way she spoke, not dramatic or exaggerated, just honest. Marcus found himself telling her things he didn't plan to share. He told her how writing helped him cope with stressful years in New York, how he once dreamed of publishing a book, and how he almost signed with a small publisher before life derailed everything. Ella listened carefully, her eyes soft with empathy. When he finished, she looked at him thoughtfully. "Maybe your dream didn't disappear," she said. "Maybe it just waited for you to be ready again." Marcus wasn't sure if it was her voice, her kindness, or just the timing. But her words felt like a gentle push he needed. Their routine continued. Some nights they talked from their porches across the short fence. Other nights they met while taking out trash or picking up mail. What began as coincidence slowly became something they both expected, almost like unspoken appointments. But the night that changed everything came with heavy clouds and a slow, steady rain. Marcus was at home editing a chapter when he heard a knock. He opened the door to see Ella standing there with 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate, her hair slightly damp from the rain. "I made too much," she said, cheeks warm with a shy expression. "Thought you might want some?" Stepped aside. "Come in." She hesitated for half a second, not out of fear, but respect, then stepped inside with soft footsteps. His living room was warm, lit only by a small desk lamp and the glow from his laptop. She handed him a mug and sat near the window, watching droplets slide down the glass like tiny silver lines. For a while, they sat quietly. The room filled only by rain tapping softly on the roof. Datla broke the silence first. "You know, I came here to start over. I wanted somewhere quiet, somewhere I could breathe again." Marcus took a sip, waiting without pressing her. Ella continued, her voice steady but fragile beneath the calm. "My last relationship wasn't bad, just draining. We wanted different things. I felt like I was becoming someone else just to keep the peace." Marcus nodded slowly. Sometimes staying too long can hurt more than leaving. Her eyes met his, surprised by how deeply he understood. "Exactly." Then she asked him a question he didn't expect. "What about you? Why Seattle?" He stared at the rain, fingers tightening around the mug. "I left New York after things fell apart. Job stress. A relationship that ended quietly. We were together, but not really. I stayed because I was afraid to start over." He exhaled. "Eventually, I packed my life into a car and drove until the city felt far enough." Ella watched him with a look that felt sincere, not pitying. "Starting over takes courage," she said. "Most people only talk about doing it. Sometimes I still feel stuck, he admitted. Maybe you're still healing, she replied softly. Healing doesn't always look like moving fast. The room felt warmer emotionally, not just physically. Their words settled gently, like truths neither had said out loud before. It wasn't romantic in a dramatic way. It was deeper, like two people finally feeling seen. They talked for almost 3 hours. About childhood memories, her summers in Vermont, his teenage years spent reading in crowded cafes. About fears hers of ending up alone, his of never becoming anything meaningful. About dreams hers of starting her own art studio, his of finally finishing his book. Time blurred. The rain slowed. The world outside felt distant. As midnight approached, Ella stood pulling her sweater sleeves down. I should go, she said softly. Marcus walked her to the door, not wanting the moment to end. When she reached the porch, she paused and looked back at him with an expression that held gratitude, curiosity, and something unspoken. I'm glad we talked, she said. Me too, he answered. She took a few steps toward her house, then turned one last time. And Marcus, she added gently, don't stop writing again, even if no one else reads it. I will. He felt her words linger long after she left when the door closed behind him. Marcus returned to his desk and stared at the notebook Ella gave him. The blank pages no longer felt intimidating. They looked like a promise. He opened it and wrote until dawn. He didn't realize it yet. But those late-night conversations were slowly pulling him out of the quiet life he built to protect himself. And somewhere between shared laughter and late-night honesty, Marcus began to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. What he didn't know was that Ella felt it too, and soon. Something would push their connection from quiet friendship into something deeper. Something they weren't sure how to handle yet. Marcus hadn't expected to see another gift that week. His mornings had become quieter, filled with routine, coffee, writing, checking emails, and small moments of anticipation for a smile from Ella when they passed each other in the street. He thought he had grown used to the comfort of her presence, to the quiet reassurance of shared words and late-night conversations. Then, on a crisp Saturday morning, he stepped outside and saw a small, neatly wrapped box resting on his porch once again. It wasn't large, just enough to intrigue him with a single note tucked under the ribbon. He picked it up carefully, recognizing Ella's handwriting instantly. The note read, If you're free tonight, meet me by the lake at 7. Ella Marcus's heart skipped a beat. The invitation was simple, almost casual, yet it carried a quiet weight. He held the note in his hand, staring at it, imagining the lake under the soft glow of the evening sky. He told himself it was just a friendly gesture, maybe a walk, maybe just talking. But a part of him, an excited, nervous part, no, it meant more. As the afternoon passed, Marcus couldn't focus on anything else. His thoughts kept returning to the lake, to Ella, to the way her smile always made him feel lighter after a long day. By evening, he had dressed in a light jacket, shoes polished, hair combed, and a small gift of his own tucked into his coat pocket notebook with a story he had finished just yesterday. He didn't know if he would give it to her, but the thought of sharing it seemed right. The lake was only a 15-minute walk from his house. But when Marcus arrived, he was already nervous. The water shimmered under the fading sunset, reflecting the pink and gold clouds like a mirror. He could see Ella waiting near the dock, holding a small lantern. The glow from the light made her face seem warmer, more inviting than it had ever looked from her porch or across the fence. She wore a light beige coat and a scarf loosely wrapped around her neck. You came, said a hint of relief in her voice. She wasn't smiling in a teasing way, but with a quiet warmth that made Marcus feel seen. I wouldn't miss it, he said, returning her smile. Though his heart thumped faster than he expected, they walked side by side along the water's edge, each step soft against the wooden planks of the dock. The evening air smelled of pine and water, cool but not biting, and the gentle lapping of the lake created a rhythm that seemed to match the nervous beat of their hearts. Ella broke the silence first, her voice soft but steady. I wanted to show you this place. It's quiet, peaceful. Sometimes when life gets too loud, it helps to come somewhere like this. Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of her words. "It's beautiful," he said. "Thank you for inviting me." She glanced at him quickly, almost shyly, then back at the water. "I also wanted to give you something," she said, holding out a sealed envelope. "It's a little personal." Marcus took it carefully, curious. The envelope was thick and slightly heavy. He opened it slowly, sliding the contents out. Inside were neatly printed pages his own words. The stories he had typed on sleepless nights, drafts he had never shared with anyone. His eyes widened. You read these?" Ella shook her head quickly. "I didn't read all of them. Just enough to see who you are. You have a talent, Marcus. You shouldn't hide it." Her voice wavered slightly. "I wanted you to know that someone believes in your work. Not because it's perfect, but because it's you." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't realized how much he needed this validation. It's quiet acknowledgement from someone who saw him for more than just a neighbor or a polite face. The notebook on his porch had been thoughtful, but this felt like an opening, a bridge into someone truly seeing him. I don't know what to say," he admitted, voice low. "You don't have to say anything," she whispered. "I just wanted you to see what I see. I think it's important. Sometimes people need someone to notice them before they can notice themselves." Marcus smiled, a little shakily, a little in awe. You believed in me before I did," he said softly. Ella looked down at the dock, shifting her weight, then glanced back at him. "I didn't do it to make you feel obligated. I did it because I wanted to, because I like seeing people grow, and I like seeing you." Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest, a rush of emotions he couldn't fully name. It was affection, respect, admiration, maybe even something deeper. He realized he had been waiting for someone to notice not just his words, but his heart, and here she was. The air grew cooler, and Marcus instinctively pulled his jacket tighter. Ella seemed to notice, and she wrapped her scarf a little tighter around her neck. For a long moment, they stood silently, the night enveloping them like a soft blanket. Then Ella stepped back slightly, her tone shifting to something more serious. "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you. Before anything happens between us, you need to know." Marcus's heart tightened. He nodded, silent but attentive, ready to hear whatever she needed to share. "I moved here because I needed to start over," she said, staring at the water. "I was engaged, but I walked away. Not because I didn't care, but because I changed. I wasn't the person he met anymore, and I couldn't pretend to be that person. I couldn't ask anyone else to love someone I wasn't." Marcus listened quietly, understanding the gravity in her words. "It's brave," he said softly. "Walking away is never easy." She nodded, eyes glistening in the lantern light. "I'm still healing, Marcus. I don't want to give someone pieces of me unless I know I can offer the whole heart someday." Marcus stepped closer, though not touching her. His presence alone seemed to matter. "You don't owe me perfection," he said. "You just owe yourself honesty. And I'm here whether this becomes something or stays something meaningful." Ella's lips curved into a fragile but genuine smile, a mixture of relief and hope. "I don't want this to end here," she whispered. "I just need time." Marcus nodded. "And I'll be right here, writing, waiting, not for the whole world, but for the right moment." They stood together on the dock, gazing at the lake, the night air filled with unspoken promises. Their story wasn't defined by grand gestures or immediate confessions, but by the quiet understanding and gentle trust growing between them. It was the kind of moment that could have been ordinary, but because of what they shared, it became extraordinary. The night seemed to stretch on, holding them in a fragile, beautiful bubble where everything felt possible. Marcus felt something shift inside him, something he hadn't felt in years: hope, connection, and a quiet certainty that life could surprise him in the best ways. And though the invitation began as a simple note on a box, it became a turning point, a night that marked the beginning of something neither of them fully understood, but both were willing to explore carefully. With hearts open and minds aware, the lake reflected the stars above. as if acknowledging a story just beginning. One filled with curiosity, affection, and the patient promise of more to come. The lake had fallen silent after their long walk along the dock. Moonlight reflected off the water, casting soft silver patterns across their faces. Marcus and Ella stood close enough to feel the quiet energy between them, but not so close that the air felt crowded. The lantern flickered gently, throwing shadows across the wooden planks. For a moment, neither spoke. The night carried their words before they could be said, the gentle lapping of water matching the rhythm of their hearts. Ella took a slow breath, her hands gripping the lantern tightly, as if it anchored her to the moment. She looked at Marcus, her eyes searching for a sign that he could handle the truth she was about to share. "Marcus, there's something I need you to know," she said softly, voice trembling slightly, but steady. "I moved here for a reason. Not just for peace, not just to start over, but because I needed to heal first." Marcus nodded, leaning slightly forward, attentive, ready to listen. He sensed her vulnerability, the careful honesty in her tone. He wanted to reassure her, but he knew that words alone wouldn't suffice. Sometimes silence carried more comfort than anything else. "I was engaged," Ella continued, eyes falling to the rippling water below. "But I left him. Not because I didn't love him, not because I didn't care, but because I realized I was changing. I was no longer the person he fell in love with. I couldn't ask him to stay with someone who wasn't the same, and I couldn't stay pretending to be that person myself." Marcus absorbed her words quietly. The weight of her confession was heavy, but it didn't scare him away. Instead, it created a quiet intimacy, a bridge between two people who had already started trusting each other in small, meaningful ways. "I'm still healing, Marcus," she whispered, eyes glistening with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. "I don't want to give anyone pieces of me unless I can give them my whole heart. And I need time before I can even consider that with anyone else." Marcus stepped a small pace closer, careful not to invade her space. His presence was steady, warm, and calm. "You don't owe me perfection," he said softly. "You owe yourself honesty. That's enough. And I'll be here whether this turns into something more or stays something meaningful just as it is." Ella looked up at him then, a fragile smile forming on her lips. It was shy, unsure, but real. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke again. "I don't want this to end. I just need time. I hope you can understand that." "I do," Marcus said quietly, "and I will wait. Not forever, not impatiently, but with patience. For the right moment, when it's ready, when we're both ready." For a long moment, they stood silently. The night seemed to stretch around them, holding the space between them sacred. Marcus noticed the small details, the soft curve of her smile, the gentle tilt of her head, the way the lantern's light caught her eyes. He realized that sometimes connection didn't need words to be understood. Sometimes it was the quiet shared presence, the mutual recognition of each other's hearts. Ella took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of unspoken tension. "You've been patient with me, Marcus, more than anyone else. And you've seen me in ways I didn't even realize I needed to be seen." Marcus smiled softly. "I think that's what neighbors are for," he said lightly, but his eyes betrayed a deeper truth. To notice, to care, to help without demanding anything in return. Her eyes glistened, and she shook her head slightly. "You've gone beyond that. You've become something more. Someone I trust, someone I look forward to seeing every day, even when I don't expect it." Marcus felt a warmth spread through him, the kind that made the chest ache with a mix of joy and longing. He wanted to reach out to hold her hand, but he restrained himself. He respected her need for space, her careful honesty, and her pace. Love, he realized, was not about rushing it, was about patience, about understanding, about being present when it mattered most. Ella's voice softened. "I don't want to make promises I can't keep. I don't want to risk hurting you if I'm not ready. But I feel something, Marcus. Something real. Something worth waiting for." Marcus nodded. "Then that's enough for me. I don't need promises. I just need honesty, and you've given me that. I'll be here with no expectations, just presence. A soft wind stirred, moving through the trees around the lake. It carried with it the scent of pine and damp earth, and the quiet rustling seemed to echo their shared emotions. The night was alive, yet gentle, as if nature itself was acknowledging the beginning of something fragile, yet promising. Ella smiled again, a little brighter this time, her shoulders relaxing. "Thank you," she whispered, "for understanding, for being patient, for seeing me." Marcus stepped a little closer, still careful not to crowd her, and said, "I see you, Ella, all of you. And I want to be here, not for a moment, not for a chapter, but for the story you're writing, even if it's unfinished right now." She looked at him, eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and hope. The corners of her lips curved into a genuine smile, the kind that reached her eyes and softened the edges of all her past fears. "I didn't know I could feel this way again," she admitted. "I didn't know I could trust someone without fear." Marcus felt a quiet relief, as if a weight had lifted from both their hearts. "Then let's take it slow," he said. "No rush, no expectations, just us. Here, now." For the first time in years, Ella felt a lightness in her chest, a warmth that wasn't fleeting or forced. It was real. It was steady. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope. They stayed there, by the lake, long after the lantern had dimmed and the moon had climbed higher into the night sky. The air was cool, but neither of them felt cold. Words had been shared, truths had been revealed. And a quiet bond had formed, a bond that didn't need labels, declarations, or dramatic gestures. It was enough that they understood each other, that they were present for each other, that they could breathe in the same night and feel something genuine. Finally, as the first hint of dawn approached, Marcus spoke. "Shall we head back?" Ella nodded yes. "But I'll walk slowly," she said, smiling softly. "I want to savor this night the way it feels." And so they walked, side by side, along the quiet streets of their neighborhood. The world around them had not changed, but something between them had. Something unspoken yet deeply felt had shifted. Their connection was no longer just about curiosity or casual friendship, was about understanding, trust, and the delicate beginnings of love. It wasn't a story of instant passion or immediate resolution. It was a story of patience, honesty, and the gentle promise of something beautiful. Their hearts were open, cautious but willing, and the night had given them a gift more lasting than any notebook, any note, any gesture, the gift of possibility. And as they parted at their doorsteps, each returning home with quiet anticipation and soft smiles, they knew the story wasn't ending. It was only beginning. A beginning filled with hope, with honesty, and with the gentle promise that sometimes the heart knows its own timing, and waiting can be the most meaningful part of all.